Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the State of Black Education, South Bay. We are so glad to have everyone here in the room. Um, One thing about being virtual that's kind of cool is that we have access to people all over the state and all over the world. And I heard that we have folks that signed up from all over the state and all over the nation. And so if you can, just so we can see kind of who's in the room, if you can just use the chat and say what city you are in right now, where you're from, just put that in the chat so we can see who's represented. Want to see who's in the room. And while you're doing that, that I'll see kind of what's going on while we're doing that. I'm going to go ahead and get us started today. My name is Loriana Gardier, and I'm the director of Destiny Academy in partnership with Book Academy. And since I have the mic right now, I will share a little bit about what Destiny and Book do. We offer free academic enrichment services to African ancestry students. We have free tutoring, homework help, and cultural enrichment, including African history classes, financial literacy, and we also offer mental wellness therapy and family support for those students. And more than anything, what I'm really excited about the work that we're doing is that our kids who are often isolated as the only African American student in the room, they have the unique opportunity to learn in a space with their peers, with other Black kids and Black staff. And one thing I'm really proud of this program is that we have about 40 to 50% of our staff, our teaching staff, are Black males. Can we get a little hand for that? We need to see Black males in the classroom, whether it be virtual or in person. We need the Black males in the classroom, and our program, our kids are seeing Black males in those positions, and it's very unique, and it's also very empowering for our Black students to see. So we're going to put a link to Book and Destiny Academy in the chat. Sign your kids up. We have some great things going on right now. And I do want to say, I see a lot of folks from different parts of the state. I don't know if I see anybody in another state, but what I do want to address, this is a conversation that stems from the South Bay area, but this conversation is for everyone. I'm confident that everyone who is invested in Black education will leave this space with some tools to take action in your own community, and you'll have the opportunity to partner with us. One really important aspect of this conversation is that we want to create unity in the Black community around education. I think that's really important. One of the main goals of this conversation is to unify us all over so that we can create the best academic opportunities for our kids. So, really quick, why are we here today? Well, as the director of Destiny Academy and as a parent, we are declaring a state of emergency for our Black students. And we are calling for an assessment of the state of Black education in the South Bay. So, what's the emergency? Where's the emergency? We have to put fires out in student and parent engagement, cultural disregard and isolation in our schools, white supremacist instruction and curriculum and its impact in our students, systematic racism, and educational policies and discipline, and also access to resources. These are things that we need to address. These are the things that we are coming together to fight against. And we're unifying in those efforts to do that. So today, this conversation, we are unifying our community, we're sharing resources, we're strategizing and mobilizing to activate change in Black education. And to lead us further in that, well, before we go, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And the fact that you're here shows your investment in our kids in Black education. So thank you for being a part of this conversation. And so to lead us into our conversation today, I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Sean Gardier. Sean has a master's in education and has worked as a special education teacher for 5 years. Then he transitioned into administration, where he is currently the vice principal and dean of discipline at Gunderson High School in San Jose. He is also the youth pastor at Bible Way Christian Center, one of the largest Black led congregations in San Jose. And so, without further ado, I should also mention, you guys are going to see our names. We have the same last name, and that's because he is my husband. So just a little shout out, hey babe. So we're going to welcome our moderator for today, Mr. Sean Gardier.
Hello, family. Welcome to this event. I'm so excited. The panelists are so excited to really just kick this off. Just doing some housekeeping. I'm going to introduce our panelists. From there, oh, excuse me. I'm going to
You on mute, Sean.
Okay, am I back on?
Back on, brother. We got you.
Okay. So welcome, family. Welcome to this event. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping so we understand the flow of tonight's event. I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to ask a round of questions or multiple rounds of questions to our panelists and give them an opportunity to speak about the work they are doing. Around 6:50, we will end that session and open it up for questions and answers to the community. You are the most essential part of what we're doing, so we certainly want to hear from you. And we will hold the Q&A session for approximately 30 minutes, and around 7:20, we will close off the question and answers and wrap things up. And so I would like to, at this point in time, introduce our panelists. I'm very excited to hear what they're going to share, for you all to understand and hear the work that they are doing and how it's impacting our Black kids and our Black students here in Silicon Valley, here in San Jose. First, we have my brother Tyson Amir, who is an educator. He is an author, the author of Black Boy Poems, the Black Boy Poems curriculum, and the founder and director of Freedom Soul Media Education Initiatives. We also have my sister Latoya Fernandez, who's an educator and a youth advocate, founder of Queen Hype Curriculum. We have my brother Milan Ballantyne, who is the executive director of San Jose African American Community Service Agency. We have Yvonne Maxwell, who is the executive director of Ujima, Adult and Family Services. And my sister Beja Gonzalez, who's newly elected education board member at Oak Grove School District. So we have a very esteemed panelist group, again, that I'm very excited to hear from. And so we're going to jump right into the questions so we can hear from them. I will start with my sister Toya. From your experience as an educator, as a teacher and administrator, what would you say supported the overall success of Black students?
Thank you. I'll just start out and say it, relationships. That's a huge part of it. That's everything. And the Black community in general, and part of the Black culture, when we say culturally responsive, we come to community, we break bread. When we have conflict, we sit down, we talk about it. So with Black students, it's important for them to feel a sense of community and a sense of belonging in order for them to feel successful. There also needs to be that piece of the connection to their family. If they know that you're tapped into their family and that you have the trust of their family, they're going to trust you. And so I think those two are the biggest things. I also want to pair it with, on top of the relationship piece, providing Black students an opportunity for restorative reciprocity. So Black kids are usually labeled as rambunctious, aggressive, misguided. And that's just not true, because our kids are in a position where they're in a system that was never designed for them to be successful. They're naturally going to be frustrated. They're naturally going to be experiencing a lot of discomfort, on top of systemic nutricide, right? Nutritional genocide too, that also plays a part in them. They're malnourished. So there's a lot of things that they're not getting in terms of basic needs. So when they're in an environment where they're experiencing those things and they're making mistakes, they need to know that they're allowed to make mistakes and that they're going to be supported and that they're going to be educated and being being able to demonstrate reciprocity without feeling like there's no coming back from what they've done. School should really be a place for them to feel comfortable making mistakes and knowing that they're going to be uplifted after.
Thank you, my sister Toya. If you guys couldn't feel that passion and energy, it is here. I certainly appreciate everything that you shared. I'm going to move to my brother Tyson. Tyson is heavy on curriculum. He's the curriculum guy. So I'm really eager to hear what he has to say around how does curriculum relate to our students' experiences, and what are your thoughts around the current curriculum structures? In addition to that question, the second piece was, what changes in curriculum and programming in San Jose school districts are you involved in personally?
Right on. I appreciate that. First, I am going to respond to the question, but I do want to say a few things because I think it's extremely important. First, I'm very thankful to be a part of this. Much love and respect to the other brothers and sisters who are panelists here. And then the question of curriculum, I'm preceded by a number of individuals and organizations in the Silicon Valley, throughout the Bay Area, throughout Northern California, just this country in general, who have been focusing on providing the greatest or the highest quality revolutionary educational experiences possible for Black students and other students of color. And so I'm not walking into this as some anomaly. I am trying to carry on a tradition and contribute the best way that I know how. And so when it comes to work in the South Bay, I published a book in 2016 as Black Boy Poems. When I published the book, I also knew that I was going to be creating a curriculum for it because my background as an educator, I knew that there was such a need, or there was a great need for high quality, culturally relevant, socially and politically relevant content that young people are going to be able to engage with. I knew that my book was going to be that. I knew that by creating a curriculum, I can add to or expand on the potential power of the learning material. So then when that happened and the material starts circulating more through schools, I was able to see, okay, now that the book is there, the curriculum is there, let's focus on more programming. And then as I moved into the space more as an author, I started to see other authors that had extremely powerful content that was also culturally relevant, socially, politically relevant, very timely. And we started to figure out or think about how can this content be presented to schools and then also to community organizations or independent spaces that we control and have more influence over to be more of an educational resource for our community. So then collaborating with brothers and sisters like that and then doing that work. And with that, and especially building on the tradition that's been established by some of these other Black institutions that have been focusing on this work for so long, gaining momentum, gaining traction in those spaces, and then contributing to systemic change in those spaces. So one of the parts of the question was, what is some of the work that I'm involved in now? I'm thankful to be involved in work with several districts in the South Bay. So I work with Eastside Union High School District. I work with them on redesigning their social studies department. And when I'm saying that, like the focus is the entire social studies department is going to have a change in terms of its cultural relevancy, approach, curriculum, teaching practices. And that's something that I get to help influence. And I think that's extremely powerful and important. And it's not because it's me. We need people who are doing that type of work. And if this one district is doing it, other districts need to be doing that same thing. And so brothers and sisters organizations, who are ever out there and can contribute in that way, need to be hands-on with these districts to change the curriculum and to change the learning environment, to make it more healthy, to make it more just and equitable so that our students can thrive. And if that's not happening, then we take those educational resources and we build our own independent institutions where that can happen. And we have brothers and sisters who have been a part of that work for a long time here. So I hope I spoke a little bit to that. And if there are questions, we will have our Q&A a little bit later on. So let's ask that. But we have to be creating the curriculum. We have to have our hands on the institutions. And if we can't do that, then we need to build our own institutions. And that's a long tradition that has existed here in the South Bay.
My brother, oh man, your work is so important. When we talk about curriculum, curriculum tells the story and speaks volumes to the values of the people that create them. right, to the values of the people that institute and introduce these curriculums. For instance, California and Texas, there's parts of our curriculum that are different, where Texas does not have evolution in their curriculum. They don't have evolution in their curriculum because that is a cornerstone of one of their values. It goes against it. And so when we talk about our curriculum and what our students have access to, we're telling them what we value, and to implement ourselves and them into the curriculum, it speaks to the fact that we value them. My brother, so the work that you're doing, I appreciate it, and I salute you, and I'm behind you 100%. My next question will be to my sister Beja, the newly elected board member. That is a powerful, needed position, my sister. So I just have to ask you, what do you plan to prioritize, or how do you plan to prioritize the needs of Black students and families?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm super honored to be on a panel as strong and honorable as this one. You know, I'm super humbled by, you know, being next to all of you guys. You know, when we talk about prioritizing our Black students and our Black teachers and things of that nature, it's so important to recognize that a lot of people, they come into these spaces and they talk about, like, I will have this open door policy. Well, when we're coming up on like the words equity and the theme of equity, having an open door policy is not enough. We have to really approach things with a boots on the ground type of mindset, right? We have to go out and we have to reach out to these communities, right? Because for me, I come from a background where I'm a single mother, I work full time. I don't have the time to continue to see what happens at district level, which is why I ran for the position in the first place. And that tells me that that representation needs to be brought onto the board. You know what I mean? I hear people with the open doors. I'm all ears. I'm here to see, you know, what the community needs. We need to go out and find what the community needs. We need to go out and build that. It's not enough to sit back and wait and watch and kind of play these guessing games, right? So I think a big part of you know, coming into the board is really reaching out, right? We have, you know, coffee clutches and things of that nature, where we have these students and we have these parents, and it's so important to attend, but it's also important to build these spaces, right? Where these parents and these teachers and these students, a lot of times the students don't have that space and that platform to be able to speak to what they want to see in their schools and their districts. I really want to be able to build that space for these students. So really just prioritizing their voices, their needs, and going out and getting it, right? It's just not enough to have that open door, wait till I hear it. Really just boots on the grounds, and just being active in the community. That's where I, you know, got my start from, was grassroots I'm a grassroots activist. So just really keeping that same spirit, right? Getting into politics and then just sitting down at a table is not enough. We have to keep that spirit when we move into these governing spaces. So really just being able to keep that up.
That energy, that perspective, especially coming from grassroots organizing, like, yes, you know how to get after it. You know, and you know how to hear from the people and put action behind, you know, their cries. And so, yes, it's a very important position. We thank you for being here. Absolutely. And I'm sure the people thank you for being here. So this is a direct channel to someone who can make some change, right? And access, we know access is a big contributing factor to the success that we will have or not have, right? Access is key. And so you are a point of access for the people. You know, and so we appreciate you. Thank you for your contributions. Next, I'm going to ask a question to my brother Milan Ballantyne, who is the Executive Director of the African American Community Service Agency. I would just like to know, and we would like to know, how has the agency been able to unify the Black residents? And what are some of the biggest opportunity gaps in our community? Housing, security, education, food. Can you speak to that?
Definitely, and I want to say thank you for inviting me to the conversation, because even though AACSA, as we are affectionately known, is a 42-year-old organization in a city of over 1 million people, we are still getting to know everyone here. And Black people are not a monolith. So they do not all come to AACSA, and that is all right with us because we all have different needs. You know, we all have different concerns and different desires. But we do one thing we do know about our community is connection and connectivity. And so AACSA has 6 pillars with education, economic development, health and wellness, social services, our family resource center, and social and racial justice. One way that we connect to the community is we recognize the pockets of our community. You have Black churches, you have historically fraternities and sororities, you have your social-based organizations, your alumni associations. And when you tap into the Black community, you have to understand what you're walking into depends on sometimes a national initiative that they are carrying out here in San Jose and Santa Clara County. And since AACSA has been one of those hub organizations, we have listened to the community. We've held tuning forums. We've held Black town hall meetings. And although some say, are we just getting together to talk? Actually, no. Everything that has been given to us in regards to information has helped us create and generate programs. For example, our STEAM on Saturday program, which provides also education for Lego robotics, which we just recently had over 52 kids participate in that. And what is that about? To teach them about avenues into the technology industry, which surrounds us here in Silicon Valley with all that wealth. And so the agency pretty much does a lot of outreach with our community workers, going into the community where people are, but also communicating with different agencies. Today we have with us UGMA. We have the Silicon Valley NAACP. You have the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce. Like, we understand that there are different groups taking care of our community, and we bring that information back. And where do we help make sure that everybody gathers together? Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the largest Black get together in regards to not just the history of Juneteenth, but where we come and we connect, we communicate, we engage with one another in a family atmosphere surrounded about the history of Juneteenth. And so the agency understands and identifies which programs bring us together in order to empower one another. Through our Leadership Academy, our AACSA Leadership Academy, where we develop the high school and the collegiate in order to learn these methods in regards to leadership and training and developing them to get out there. We do understand, though, that our concerns and our needs in our community are wide. Transportation, in regards to housing, the cost of living. And first of all, you can't pay to live here if you don't have a job, and a job that pays you. So when you look at equity with Black women not being paid what they should get paid to do the jobs that they do, or families not even being able to have ownership, in-home ownership here. So the list is there. And what we try to make sure that we do is not only be at the tables, but refer city and county and elected officials to those within our community that also have a voice. So again, when you talk about transportation, and let's talk about leadership. If you look across the board at city councils across Santa Clara County, you don't see Black faces at those tables. And so we do rely on not only the leaders on this Zoom, but those within other Black organizations to speak our names, speak our organization names in these meetings. And that's what AACSA has always recognized, is that we don't have to be at every table because we know that there are others within our community, but we are a hub. So, you know, during COVID-19, we're educating our community about the things that they need. We've been open since March, have seen well over 9,000 individuals to give them PPE, information, voting registration, and census. So we are a hub, but we recognize that we are a partner within the tapestry of Silicon Valley.
My brother. Now, if what he just shared, all the programs that he just shared and all of the work that they are doing has not motivated you to tap in, because, you know, I understand as the executive director, he has to make things happen and he has to keep it moving. So he may not be, you know, so worried about who has not tapped in yet. But my people, if you have heard all the things that are going on, you have to tap in. Like, we have to utilize this hub, support this hub, you know, the resources that are there. And if you don't need resources, then you may be a resource for the community. So not tapping in, there's really no space for excuses there. You are either going there because you need the warmth, the love, and the support and resources of your community, or you're on the other end and you can provide that. So regardless of where you are on the spectrum, you need to tap in. My brother's doing amazing work and has been doing amazing work for a long time. And so again, I implore you to tap in. He can't say it like I'm saying it, and I'm being mild about it. I need my people to tap in. Amen. All right. And so next, I want to direct a question at my sister Yvonne, who is the executive director of Ujima. How has the state of Black education changed since Ujima's inception? And if it has changed, how and why?
We need you to unmute. Let's try again.
Now,
There we go.
all right. Greetings, everyone. So great to be here with all of you talking about this very, very, very important topic that's so vital to our community and our ability to thrive and grow and be healthy. So I'm happy to be here with everyone. Ujima has our 30th birthday is next month. We've been around 30 years. We've been doing school programs through the city of San Jose, their best gang prevention funding since the mid-90s. And it's always been schools in the Eastside Union High School District serving our youth and families there at schools. We also have mental health programs, but the focus of the education has been on those cities' fundings in the schools. And what has been a really important part of that, or for us, is that we create a liberation consciousness within our children at these schools, to bring our children together, our youth, to understand the power of being together and affirming each other, because we know what it's like for our children in schools here in Santa Clara County. Our numbers are so small. And systems of white supremacy and the internalization of all of this poisonous information about ourselves and who we are, we often turn against each other, and we see that on the high schools. So that's been incredibly important. As far as there being a change, as far as education, I see very little. And some of the things that the other panelists have spoken about having more African staff and more African faculty on those campuses is absolutely vital. Curriculum, right? So part of what we do with bringing the youth together is we have an Ujima class, and we've been able to have that as part of the curriculum. So they're pull-out classes for those African students, and we talk about history, our relationships, communication, our images in the media, and really developing that critical thinking. But it's just that Ujima class. So having more of that, having our own schools, having, the work that Sister Latoya does and Brother Tyson is doing in the schools, and expanding that and making that more available, we see is a recent development. And also the work that the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet is looking at this, creating the study and looking at. No, not a lot of change in almost the 30 years, but there's something about right now, there's some opportunities here for us to really kick the door in and really transform our systems so that our children are getting what they need, so that we are stronger as a community and more vital and can flourish. So yes, I'm certainly very, very hopeful and very excited about this current political, social unrest, upheaval. It's an opportunity for transformation, and I'm excited to be working with everybody to continue to do this work.
Thank you so much. It looks like we're making pretty good time, so I'm going to go through another round of questions to the panelists. I see questions are starting to come in from the community. We will be answering questions in approximately 16 minutes. doing our Q&A session. And so we'll take these questions down. Look forward to responding to them. My sister Toya, are you still with me?
Yes, I'm with you, brother.
Absolutely. My sister, so what kind of supports do you think schools and teachers need to better serve and support our students?
I mean, first and foremost, more Black people. We need more Black people to be informing the decisions in the schools. I apologize. My brother lives with me and he's laughing really loud in the background. But yeah, we need more Black people in the schools. Even if they're not teachers that are working in the schools and they're not administrators, you should be bringing Black community stakeholders into the schools to help set up the culture within the school. So I think that's a huge part of it. Milan brought it up earlier. The African American Community Service Agency is a hub, and it's one that could also be utilized in such that you could bring folks from there to partner with schools. And I think that partnership is lacking in the community. I think there's a fear around bringing Black people into the schools. I think it's twofold. One, I think it's really hard for the white supremacist kind of structure to admit that it needs support and that it's broken. And I also think that there's a pride that also comes with white supremacy and thinking that they're saving our kids. And so I think that that's why they're not inviting us in. So it's really important that that we have that happen, that we have more Black people in the schools. The other thing is the curriculum piece too. I know that at least for charter schools, they have complete autonomy over their curriculum. And so even in our charter schools, we still see white supremacy and white supremacy curriculum being taught to our students. And that really doesn't make any sense because they actually have the freedom to choose the content that's being put in front of our kids. So I think that's something else that we have to look at. And then another thing is the integration of Black joy and celebration into the campuses. So that also goes hand in hand with being culturally responsive. There should be opportunities to celebrate Blackness within the schools every month. I actually give a quick example of this. When I was the dean, I hosted the school's first ever Black History Month celebration, which is wild. My daughter's father did the same at our daughter's school. And it was crazy to think that here are schools that have existed here in San Jose for a long time, and they've never even recognized Black History Month, right? We as families have to advocate for those things. There's school site council and there are also the PTA. When I look at those committees, we're not on them. We're not on them. And that's a problem. And it's not to say, like, it's great that we have, you know, representation from other communities there. And yes, the Latino community is huge, but we have people in every pocket of this city too. So that 1% of us, we're spread out all over the district. So there needs to be Black voices at those tables, because when they're talking about the celebrations and the events that are happening at these schools, we're not at the table. So our stuff isn't going to be represented. So we have to start showing up. And I think this is a great, huge, big next step for us coming together here and really letting the school system know, like, we're here. And we're going to be here and we're at the table. And as long as our kids are in these schools, we need to have both hands in the pot, you know, and that's it. Like, we don't need to be asking anymore if we can come. We don't need to be, you know, second guessing ourselves on whether or not we have the right to advocate for our kids. Our kids are there. We have every right to be there. We have every right to voice our concerns. We have every right to bust in that administrator's office and demand justice and answers when we're not getting them. So I think a part of that and what we need is to be able to step in that courage and to have people like Beja who can support us in that and let us know, like, it's all right. Go and do that. We're going to back you up as elected officials when you go and do that as well.
My sister, I wish you would have told us how you really feel, you know? We need that energy. We need that power. We are a communal people, you know, like, we need community, which is, it is so difficult to build within, you know, the limits of San Jose because we are so spread out. And so we do need to bring in as much of the community into our schools as possible, because it is very difficult to function as an outlier in any space. right? And so when we build community, we build stronger students. We build environments that you feel safe in, that you feel comfortable in. We can look at certain schools, and in my school, I can speak to that experience because we have one of the largest and strongest BSUs in San Jose, which are the Black Student Unions. And our BSU, those students are thriving. They're doing very well, so much so that they almost, are off the charts as far as who needs support. Our Black students are doing so well because they have such a strong community there, and so we need that, and we have to be intentional about that. We have to be very intentional about building those communities within our schools. So, my sister, thank you for bringing that up and highlighting that. Tyson, my brother, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still in here.
Okay, so why did you start Black Boy Joy Poems, and how has it impacted the Black student experience?
Well, as I was saying before, and I think Sister Toya, she spoke to it as well. It's there are a number of people and organizations and agencies that have proceeded and have laid a very strong and solid foundation. And so the way that I got to Black Boy Poems was, so my mother, avid reader, especially of African-American authors. When I was approaching, I think maybe my 13th or 14th birthday, the gift that she gave me was a book. And she told me, this is one of my favorite authors. This is one of my favorite works ever written, and that was Black Boy by Richard Wright. And so I tried to read it at that age. It was too deep for me. You know what I'm saying? I just wasn't ready. I came back to it a couple years later, and it was everything that my mother said. It transformed my life. Seriously, that's not hyperbole. That's the reality of the situation. What I read in Richard Wright's experience completely reshaped the way that I saw myself and I saw the world around me. That's the power of what we're talking about, though. When you're able to see yourself in the curriculum, when you're able to see yourself in programming, and I didn't get this from school, I got this from my mama, you know what I'm saying? My mama put me on. She knew, she saw me, she said, you a dude who's creative, you like words, you like this and that. Let me put this in front of you because I know this is something that's gonna have an impact on you. And she was right, her intuition was 100% right. So when I eventually had this idea for a book, and it came after revisiting Richard Wright's work for a second time, after I read the book again, I'm like, I need to do something like what Richard Wright did for his day and time, but for my day and time. And I knew it was gonna look different because the conditions are different. Richard Wright's born in the early 1900s. He's writing 1930, 1940. I'm writing in 2015, 2016. I'm a byproduct of the hip hop generation and so many other things. And so I knew I had to take the conditions that were given to me, put it in the text, but speak authentically and as real as possible to the experience that produced me. And I knew if I did that, other people, regardless of how they're identified demographically, they would be able to see something in that work and connect, especially young Black students. And that's why I knew it had that revolutionary educational potential. And so in order to take it to the next level, because this is not a critique of school and how it functions, but if a teacher or a school or a district adopts a curriculum, the process is usually you might have some professional development to become familiar with how the curriculum works. And then you leave it up to that teacher or those teachers to then come up with how to implement that curriculum. I'm like, I ain't gonna let that happen. I'm gonna create the curriculum. I'm gonna create the programming to make it as easy as possible for it to be implemented so there are no excuses. One of my education mentors, Sister Deborah Watkins, who founded ABEN, a Black Education Network, CAAAE, all of that. Like I've learned so much from her example. She puts on a conference almost every year at Stanford because you'll have schools and districts who will be like, all right, we want different curriculum. We want different programming, but where are these people? They've been here. You know what I'm saying? You have programming, you have folks who have done this and pioneered in that stuff. But when it comes to looking for them, these schools and these districts have this incredible invisibility vision power where they can't see Black folks who can do these things. So let's make it as clear as possible. Here's the book, here's the curriculum, here's the programming. Here's an organization that can come in here and do that. Here are community members that can come in here and do that. And so when you're asking about where did Black Boy Poems come from, the curriculum and all that came from, it comes from that long, well-established tradition in our community. But then it's that other aspect of we have to produce it and make it and bring it to our people by any means necessary. If they in the schools, we got to get there. If it's not going to be there through the schools, we got to build our own independent apparatus that will allow our community to have access to that. And again, that's a long tradition that's been established here in San Jose, in the South Bay. And so we're here to carry that tradition on. So that's it. I'm checking out with that.
You stated it well. Nice shout out to one of our queens, Ms. Deborah Watkins. She's a pioneer of education within our city. And I believe she's on the call. So shout out to you, Ms. Watkins. The imperative of Black literature cannot be overemphasized. The impact that it has, and that's why your work is so crucial. Because I can tell you right now, without having talked to the majority of people on this call right now, we can all raise our hands and testify of reading some book. Maybe it was The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. There's a book that has touched us, you know, and that has motivated us in a way that we spent years in these school institutions and we're never motivated. Like we're missing motivation. We're not motivated by this curriculum. And sometimes we get into this literature and all you have to do is give me this one book. You've been trying to educate me for so long and had no effect, right? I read this one book and I'm so motivated. And once you motivate a person, you can step back and watch them fly, right? So again, the imperative around Black literature can never be overemphasized. So I appreciate you sharing that and what had given you that spark, right? My sister Beja, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Unfortunately, this may be my last question for the panelists. Again, the community is the backbone of what we're doing and very important. And I don't want to cheat them on the Q&A session. And so I'm gonna need you to knock this one out the park. No. Okay. So my sister, what ideas do you have around restorative justice and other programs that could benefit Black students in our schools?
You know, I get asked that a lot when it comes to restorative justice. And for me, there's so many great programs out there. But the fact of the matter is, if we are not holding people accountable at every level within our districts, within our schools, it's not going to have the impact that we need it to have. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can send our children out of the classrooms and send them to RJ circles. But if they go back into a room where it's the same teacher with the same mindset that's been, you know, teaching since the 80s, it's not going to make that impact. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it's really about administering these things from at every level, at every single level. You know what I mean? We need to have teachers in homeroom, teachers in math and language arts. Every single teacher needs to have that training. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of training they're getting. If it's not implemented at every level, it's not really making that impact. And I'll say it again and again, like, we need to hear, that's pretty much been the theme here. We need to see people like us administering these trainings. It needs to be us in there teaching people what trauma-informed training looks like, what, you know, these RJ circles need to include, things like that. It needs to be us at the forefront, but it needs to be administered at every single level. We can't leave anybody behind. But yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. For me, it's really about pushing it through across the board. We can push one really great program in one really great place and send, you know, our kids to the counselors and hope that it impacts them. But if it's not being rooted into our systems as a whole, it doesn't make no sense. So for me, it's really about pushing it everywhere, pushing it everywhere in every sense to the point where we should have our youth leading these circles. If you can't teach it, then you have not learned it. That's something that I grew up being told over and over again. Our youth should be, you know, being able to lead these circles and know what restorative justice looks like and be able to define what restorative justice looks like for them so they can go forward and continue to root that into our systems.
Absolutely. You nailed it, right? Implementation at every level. Because traditionally, how we respond to behavior further pushes students out of the community. And we've already talked about the community and the importance of community, right? So you already come in as a student where not many other kids or teachers look like you. So you already have this sense of being an outlier. Now there's a behavior, and that behavior pulls you out of the class. That behavior removes you from after school activities and makes you stay after school, right? And then you meet with one person and then you're supposed to be reintroduced to the community, right? With this shame, right? And so restorative justice, when implemented with fidelity, is a community event. And it's about bringing that student back in the community, not removing him or her out of the community and punishing them and shaming them. It is about bringing them back in the community, making them feel valued. This is why we need you. This is who you're important to. This is why we love you. This is how we're going to support you, right? And so when it's implemented at every level with people who care, right, that's restorative. That's restorative. So thank you. Implementation at every level, absolutely. It is 6:50, and so we are going to go into our Q&A session or portion of this event.